Hello, welcome to Catholic Life, ordinary people with extraordinary faith. I'm Deacon Jody Moscona. Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to talk about schools, and in particular Catholic schools, and I'm blessed to have Dr. Melanie Vergis, Dr. Mel, here with us again for our annual report on Catholic schools. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you're an old regular. I don't think we need to introduce you, but let's just, for the sake of formality, tell everybody what your position is and what you do and where you work.
Well, I serve as the superintendent of Catholic schools for the Diocese of Baton Rouge, and I work at the Catholic Life Center. We have a staff of 4 professional staff and 2 support staff who we could not live without. We also have the special ed department that's under the Secretariat, and we have the child nutrition program that's under the Secretariat.
So there you go. Dr. Mel is an old regular here. We have this every year as the school year begins, and we get to talk about the exciting things past and future for schools. So let's talk about the past. Last year was a great year because I know I saw the report. So tell us a little bit, just a brief recap about how well we did last year.
We did very well last year. As usual, our ACRE scores for faith knowledge continue to be above the national norm of Catholic schools. Mm-hmm. We don't compare ourselves to all students, we'd be even higher. We compare ourselves to students who are particularly in Catholic education. So that's exciting. We also had over 200,000 service hours reported to our office from across the diocese. And I suspect there's a lot more, but they're just not written down because every day our students and our faculty take up and help people in need. So we're very happy about that. We finished the elementary curriculum for religious education last year, and that has been distributed to schools and is being implemented, so we're very proud of that. I want to do a shout out to the committee. Dina Dow, Mr. Miller, and all the other people on the committee worked very hard. They did research across the nation to see what dioceses had done recently in the last 5 years, and they contacted the Archdiocese of Seattle, and based on their work, we developed our work. So we're grateful to them. So shout out to my friends in Seattle. And my daughter lives in Seattle, so I could go there in person and tell them, I guess. So maybe a road trip's in order. maybe next time I'm visiting. I'll be there, I'm sure, sometime in the future. So we have a lot of good going on with faith development. Very happy about that. We continue to have more and more teachers and administrators receive their basic and intermediate and advanced religious ed certification. It's part of the contracts for them to work in our diocese. And this year, for the first time, we published a list of all the people in our diocese who work at our schools who have those certifications. And we handed that out at our annual Ed Gathering, which is the first Tuesday of August. We all come together. And so they got to see their names in the program, and I hope they felt proud, and I hope they felt happy, because that way we're truly walking the talk of our faith in everyday classrooms, whether you teach physics, whether you teach social studies, whether you teach English or religion. We're all certified in religious education.
I love it because that reminds me, I tell people all the time, when we were in Catholic elementary school 100 years ago, everything was about the faith. So you're in math and it's like 1 candlestick and 3 hosts.
I remember those days. I also remember as a math teacher that more praying went on before my quizzes.
Oh yeah, you were tough.
More sincere prayer goes on in those hard classes. But we have seen our ACRE test continue to rise, and we think that it's because our teachers are more prepared to discuss their faith and feel more comfortable, and that comes from that certification work. So we're grateful to the Dina Dow and the Department of Evangelization and Catechesis for being a partner on that and really supporting that work.
That's great stuff.
Academically, our ACT Aspire scores keep going up. This is our 3rd year taking the test. We could not be happier. Good. I mean, it's really unpredicted success. We're amazed. We know that has a lot to do with the academic standards, which are posted on our website, and working with schools and teachers to map the curriculum. So we know academically we continue to achieve, greater heights, and we're very, very pleased with that.
And we're blessed in that regard to have great teachers and administrators for all of our schools. Now, tell us how many schools again?
We have 29 schools and a special ed program. The special ed program has classes at school sites.
6?
We have 5 this year for autism and/or intellectual disabilities. We also have dyslexia labs and resource labs that are run from the special ed department, although that's technically not special ed. We didn't want it to fall through the cracks. So we have a consistent very effective program that has been stood up at several schools.
Good, good. So that's the foundation for the springboard for this year. And I know you had your meeting. I know I've heard all the rumblings because I have people in very high places. And so tell us a little bit about what you envision for this year.
Well, for this year, we will continue to focus on growth. We will continue to work with our schools and support our schools. We've done the statistical work that it takes to look at how we can target and give help where it's needed. You know, if your arm hurts, the doctor's going to figure out exactly what's going on before he or she prescribes what needs to be done. That's what we do with statistics. It's the same type of thing. So we've been looking at statistics and making plans for improvement.
Well, that is great. So as we begin the school year, has there been any changes? Tell us about the new schools with new principals, all the things we usually talk about. I know you got a few.
Actually, we have one new principal. That's it. New principal.
Wow.
Jason Chauvin is at Catholic Elementary at Point Capee. He was assistant principal to Missy Klein, who moved on, and Jason took that position. Other than that, every principal who was reassigned has been in our diocese before.
Just moving them around.
Yeah, so I didn't even have a leadership cohort this year because they had all been through it. Usually I have a 6-session leadership cohort program of development. So Jason and Colleen Caille and I are working as a little team, and we get together every now and then, and I send him some emails, and it's much more laid back than having to have formal classes.
Great. Now, one thing that somebody asked me recently, it's in the same area, but it's in the extracurriculum, is all the sports. They noticed that a lot of the schools have kind of gotten together to have teams, like football teams and stuff. That's pretty cool.
They've always done that. If they didn't have quite enough students to field a team, they did that. And then they make up a name, and it really is cool. Darry Gluck is the commissioner of the Catholic Schools Athletic Association, which runs out of our office, and the assistant superintendent in our office helps Darry and just gives support. We have a team of a committee of principals who act as advisors to the commissioner, and we have our nice little program.
Right. So that's sports, and we have the other extracurriculars. So we have like all the beta clubs and all that kind of stuff.
If you go to a Catholic school after school, you'd think it was still in session.
Right.
So
many
many
always
students,
something going on.
So many students are active, and that's part of educating the whole child. That's part of our commitment to reaching the potential for every child.
That is great. So as we embark on this new year, do you know how many students roughly?
Yes, we have about 14,500 students in
Wow.
our schools.
That's a lot, and oftentimes people will ask me, well, why are y'all so much about Catholic education? I say, well, you know what? It's because it's the best education first. But secondly, we take a lot of pressure off the public schools.
Absolutely.
Because we educate so many of them.
Absolutely. And the parents, this is a gift of Catholic education. It's a gift for life that they give their children. There's no do-over on their formation.
That's exactly
and on their
right.
development. And those parents who put their children in Catholic schools understand the importance of the quality of what the students get and the nurturing.
Yeah, so we're in that stage now where we have grandkids and we want them to go to Catholic school, and so you're always saying, well, let's see if they can do it themselves. If they can't, we're going to run in there and help them out. There's a lot of dynamics that go into that, but yes, it is a gift.
Yes.
And I was a product of that. You were a product of that. We just feel blessed that that's something in our past that we want to pay it forward.
Absolutely.
So that's great. So with all those students and with the great faculty and with the great administration and teachers and all the things that go together, are there any specific goals for the year? Like, or you have something you want to target so we can go back to this tape next year and say, did we hit it?
Yeah, and we will. We are targeting mathematics as far as our academics. We know that there's a little dip. It's been around for at least 20 years, the data that I have. That 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade is very strong in English language arts. So we just need to beef up the math a little bit, and so we're working on that. Our board members are critical to the success of our Catholic schools at all the advisory boards. We just had a twilight retreat for our board members, and we'll continue to develop them as active participants to help our schools grow.
I remember we had some of your board members on before. It was the
Yes.
middle of the year we
Yes.
did that. That's
yes.
great. I
Yes,
remember
and we
that.
can do that again. We have wonderful board members. The diocesan school board is extremely strong, and so are local boards. We had 123 board members from across the diocese come to our twilight retreat.
Wow.
Sister Carol Semino, who is nationally published and a three-time winner on Jeopardy, came and presented on the spirituality of board service. And it was very well received. Sister's funny, and she's just on point with, this is a ministry for all of us. And so the board is a place that we continue to strengthen. One of the things we want to do is a strategic plan for the diocese. So each school will work on their strategic plan. Some of them may already have it, and if they don't, we'll give support for doing that. And we're talking maybe a 1, 3, maybe a 5-year strategic plan, just so they have some direction on where they want to go, and they kind of take stock of current demographics and things like that. And that's our goal this year, to make sure that every school has a good strategic plan, and then we'll bubble that up to the diocesan level. So maybe we can come on at some other time and talk about that.
That would
be great.
That would be great. And yeah, the demographics is really plays a hand in this, because as the population moves around, sometimes you gotta shift around your focus and look at different things. We have that in Ascension Parish going on right now. So.
Right, you absolutely have that. You also have, as each generation of parents come along, there's different things that they're looking for their children. So we want to be able to serve families.
That is great. So in a minute, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, you have a surprise for us.
I have a very special guest, one of our awesome principals, who's going to talk about an initiative we've been doing for the last couple of years in our diocese.
And we don't want to tell people what it is, because you have to stay till the other side. So that's great. We're talking about Catholic education today. We're talking to Dr. Melanie Vergis, who's the superintendent of Catholic schools for our diocese. And at the other side of the break, we're going to talk about some specific programs that you're really going to want to know about. So stay with us. We'll be right back after a short break.
Tune in to this season of Beacons of Light. We have a show that's packed full of people living their faith, giving to others, and making our world a better place. Father Michael Olelo will join us along the way and have a special spiritual message that will fill our hearts and nourish our souls and put us in a position to make our world a better place. Tune in to Beacons of Light on Catholic Life Television and online at CatholicLifeTV.org.
The Church teaches that the proclamation of the gospel is the high point of the liturgy of the Word. In fact, the proclamation of the gospel is so significant, the Church has a special book for those words, for the words of the gospel. The Word of Christ, the book of Gospels, is yet another symbol of Christ present to the Church. Because it is His own Word, the gospel is honored with candles. The gospel is honored with incense as if it were Christ Himself. This is why the book of Gospels is carried in procession either by the deacon, by the lector, or by another minister. The lectionary, on the other hand, is never carried in procession. The book of Gospels is so unique that it is laid on the altar, laid flat on the altar. The altar of Christ receives the word of Christ. Some places have learned that the book of Gospels should be displayed on the altar. But let's be clear, there is no directive in the liturgy of the Church that says the Gospel book should be put on display. Rather, it simply says that the book of Gospels is placed on the altar. It receives the book of the Gospel the same way that the altar receives the host during the preparation of the gifts. The Church teaches that the function of the proclamation of the gospel is always the deacon's responsibility, that it is a ministerial responsibility and not a presidential role. This is why in the Catholic Mass, the deacon always proclaims the gospel. And if there is not a deacon, then one of the concelebrating priests. And it is only a last resort that has the priest celebrant proclaiming the gospel. The Book of Gospels, the repository of the Word of Christ, is honored with incense and candles. Let us also reverence the book, receive the Word of Christ into our hearts, and grow in the likeness of Christ.
Welcome back to Catholic Life, ordinary people with extraordinary faith. Thank you for coming back. I'm Deacon Jody Moscona. And once again, we're joined by Dr. Melanie Vergis, the Superintendent of Catholic Schools for the Diocese of Baton Rouge. And she's got the Principal of St. Aloysius with us today to talk about something I don't even know what it is. So take it away, Dr. Mel. Introduce us to your guest.
I'm very happy to introduce you to Mrs. Erin Candelora, who serves as principal at St. Aloysius School. Erin has been in Catholic education in our diocese for more than 2 decades. Can we leave it at that?
And we feel old, Dr. Mel.
And St. Aloysius and Ms. Candelora have done a very good job with one of the initiatives that we started a few years ago in the diocese. And so I asked her to come here today, if you don't mind, and share this information with you.
Okay, so let's back up 2 steps. 2 years ago, or was it 3 now, that you were here as a new principal?
3.
3. So you may remember, that's how long we've been doing this, when we had Ms. Candelora here to talk about the fact that they were replacing a principal that had been there like forever, and it was such a task to step into the shoes of a person that had been there for so long. And I remember you were like, we're going to do this. And now you're doing it. So it's awesome. It's great to see it working out for you, and I'm glad to have you back. Let's talk about the initiative.
Well, the initiative came from some research that was done at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, Dr. Carol Dweck. And this was back in about 2010. This research was done, and it talked about the difference between a fixed and a growth mindset. And so when we looked at that, we said, certainly this is important in education. You know, when we talk about children who play ball, whether they win or not, and they get a trophy, or they expect a trophy, you know, that whole kind of, I know, but that whole kind of idea, is that really what we're about in education? We don't think so. And we don't think we've ever been about that in Catholic education. However, the culture comes into our classroom as our culture goes into the community at large. So we looked at growth mindset as a way of helping students to be lifelong learners. You know, that's a phrase that's been used for decades. We want to be lifelong learners. What does that mean? That means people who embrace learning and understand how to grow. And so at the root of that is a growth mindset. And so Erin has done a lot of our schools have done great work, but Erin's school at St. Aloysius has done exceptional work involving parents and the entire community in their growth mindset initiative. And so I wanted her to share a little bit about what she's done.
So, growth mindset.
Growth mindset.
Awesome. I like the idea of lifelong learning, by the way. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. As Dr. Mel mentioned, there are 2 different types of mindset, obviously, fixed mindset and growth mindset. So maybe you remember back if a student in your class, Dr. Mel mentioned math earlier, that would say, I'm just not good at math. So they just give up. So my mom wasn't good at math, so I'm not good at math. And so that's breaking that mold from that fixed mindset and those thoughts subconsciously or consciously that you can learn anything, you just don't know it yet. And so that's one of the little catchphrases that we use with our students. You don't know how to change a compound into, a solid yet. Mm-hmm. So that terminology, that language, the vocabulary is really powerful. As Dr. Mel mentioned, 2 years ago in the summer, the principals were introduced to this idea, and so we were in a book study and studied that throughout the year. So the month after we had our book study, then I would take that to the faculty meetings and introduce it to our faculty. They were asking for more resources. They wanted to start implementing in the classroom. So last year, we then did a book study with the faculty members that was more tailored to the classroom. So each month, a grade level had to present that at a faculty meeting and give some examples and give some great little tips. So we focused on one kind of philosophy each month based on the growth mindset. They saw huge results. In addition to that, we started doing a monthly education to the parents through our newsletter. And then the parents started asking for more information. So we kind of made it a big deal at our book fair for that year. That was a major theme. And I got our parent committee together in the spring to kick off. So going into our third year of growth mindset, we're now involving our parents. So our parents will be starting a book study at the end of September. So the book that we've chosen is called Mindsets for Parents. And Mary Kay Rickey is the author of that book, as well as other great teacher resources that we've been using for a couple of years. And we've invited her to come and present to our entire community. So she'll be here on the 25th of September. So we're excited to have her present to our faculty, and she will actually host the next morning our first chapter of our book study for our parents in our community.
So they read the chapter, and then you have discussion about it, interaction over it?
Right. So that when the teachers did it, basically there were different terminology. So they were putting videos, showing the students videos. They were setting up lessons to where the students would fail the first time of doing it. So in the science lab, our kids are high achievers, and they want it right the first time. And we were purposely setting them up to not get it right the first time. And so there was a lot of frustration at the beginning for the students. But over time, they saw that mistakes are an opportunity for growth. And so around school, we have bulletin boards about famous failures, where we talk about people in history that we only read the successes that they've done, but we don't know
Abraham
the grit.
Lincoln.
Yes, all the
come on.
dyslexic people. Einstein. There's so many that failed.
They said he would never graduate from school.
He failed
was an
algebra.
Idiot. And he's the smartest guy ever.
Right.
It's just ridiculous. Yeah.
So
I'm
the
with you.
endurance and grit are really what we need to teach our children. And back to what Dr. Mel referred to in sports, you finish the game and everybody gets a trophy, and that's not reality.
No.
And so I feel that kids have less confidence because they know they truly didn't earn it. So this growth mindset is getting them to endure through a task, to fail, and to learn from that failure. Working together with other students, because that really is true life. We all never knew algebra yet. Maybe some of us still don't know it yet. But the idea is that your brain is a muscle, just like any other muscle in your body. And the more that you use it, the more that you practice those problems that are difficult for you, you may not attain to be a math teacher, but you're going to get it. It's just a matter of timing and putting in that work ethic. So we've seen huge growth with our students approaching tougher problems, attacking tougher problems, and the teachers using that language. So when we observe, we're listening for those teachers' vocabulary and language, saying, I'm so sorry for wasting your time on that easy worksheet. I'm going to give you a harder one. And the kids are like, I can't, it was too easy for me. So all those little things are really changing our culture at school. And I think it's taken some pressure off of the teachers as well as the students. That anxiety of having to be perfect and having to get that 100A on everything really is kind of gone by the wayside. Grades are important. We all know that. But definitely they're embracing tougher challenges. And by educating the parents, then the parents can buy into that as well. Did you try your best? Yes. Well, then the B is good enough if you tried your best. So the whole culture of that taking risks, and the teachers are trying things in the classroom that they've never tried before. So they had to also take inventory, or do they have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? So that was a big part of our first year of getting the teachers understanding that about themselves in order to know how to present that to the students. And they've embraced it greatly. It's amazing.
So there's so many little parts of this that you've talked about that are just so overwhelmingly important. First of all, how you speak, having a positive attitude about what you say, because if you're always speaking negative, you're telling yourself you can't do it, but if you're speaking positive, you can. Then the second part is overcoming failure, because the failure is the foundation of success. You never know what success is until you fail.
Right.
Right.
If you always succeeded,
Right.
you really don't know what success is. It's just the only thing you've ever known. This is awesome.
It is awesome. And one of the stories I really like is the idea of the tortoise and the hare. Now, the hare had more talent, but the tortoise won the race. And the difference was the perseverance. The difference was not giving up. And I think that we've lost sight of that, or had lost sight of that in our culture, and I'm very proud that in our diocese we're bringing that back. That idea that it matters if you try. You know, and how many students, they talked about unrealized talent, because they're talented from the beginning, so they shoot up to the top of the class, then when it gets the least bit hard, they don't know how to work. They don't know how to strive, and so we're developing that.
Wow, you know, you're talking, I could tell you, we could go on forever, but I can tell you that I've experienced that, because when our kids were in school, there were the great athletes in elementary school. They were so good, they didn't even have to do anything, and then they get to high school and they just didn't know how to work hard. And the ones that were always working, got to high school, worked hard, and overcame, and wound up succeeding more than some of those
Well,
girls. And that's just sports. Think
That's
about
just
it.
sports. Well, you know, and as a former high school principal, the salutatorian very often had a higher ACT or SAT score than the valedictorian, because the salutatorian knew how to work.
Right.
It might have been that 1B that actually helped make them work even harder. So I think it's a wonderful
Pretty good.
concept to remind ourselves of, and schools throughout the diocese have embraced this at different levels and in different ways, but St. Aloysius particularly has done a phenomenal job.
Well, this is great, because now we've laid the foundation, we've opened everybody's eyes to this a little bit. They're going to want to know more. We're going to have you back just to talk about the progress you're doing, and maybe outline after you have your conference, maybe we can come back and see how it went.
Absolutely, that'd be wonderful.
I'm
Thank
really
you.
excited about it. This is
Very exciting.
awesome.
It's very exciting.
So not a fixed mindset, but a growth mindset.
And the book by Carol Dweck is available if people want to get it. It's a great first start. It's called Mindset, I think, just Mindset by Carol Dweck.
Awesome. Well, now you must be pumped up about education this school year. We all certainly are. We got to see what the foundation was from last year, that we're starting strong, and that we have big, big, big goals and objectives to reach this year. I'm so glad that y'all both were able to come by today. Thank you so much for being with us. And
Thank you for
we'll
having us.
certainly come back with growth, and you'll give us the update in mid-year like you did last year.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
So thank you for joining us today as we talked about Catholic education. One of the most important things that we have as our objective in life is to raise our kids properly, not only in mind, not only in body, but spiritually also, and that's what our Catholic schools do, full education. And we have our guests today to thank in large part for that. So thank you for being with us, and until next time, God bless everyone.